G'day there. Today we are here for tea time tips, and we are going to cover today an issue about problem clients. This conversation is kind of related to a couple of things going on at the moment. So there was a sort of a question on a group about problem clients, and one lady was kind of the attitude, oh, well, you've got to be nice to everybody. And it was kind of this thing about dealing with problem clients and turning them away was not being nice. And I'm like, yeah, that's an interesting interpretation. So I thought I'd just do a bit of a session on problem clients. Flows on from our session last time about buyer personas and why we want to focus on ideal clients. And also is ahead of a session I'm doing next week about handling reviews. So I thought this fit in nicely. Problem clients. So let's get kicked off. So this is part of the Tea Time Tips series. If you are seeing this on either LinkedIn, on my personal profile, Jane Tweedy, or on Facebook on FAQ Business Training. So this is Tea Time Tip. Why are problem clients a problem? What's the issue with it? Well, they cause a problem for a number of reasons. It can push us to compromise our values, and that can be something that's really important for us. If we say our values are being sustainable and this client forces us to use a whole bunch of plastics, then that's not going to be a good fit for our business. We're not walking the talk. We also might give up on our dream to satisfy other people's dreams, which can be a sad thing to do. Some people just can't be pleased. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how many compromises you make, they are still not going to be happy. So, being a people pleaser is not exactly the best thing in the world to be all the time. Sure, most of the time, but not all the time. And it's mentally exhausting when they challenge you all the time. They're questioning you, and particularly when they start challenging your beliefs, that becomes a major, major issue. They can also threaten you. I've seen a number of cases of this where people actually start getting threatened. If you don't do this for me, I'm going to leave you a bad review. We don't want to be bullied. Don't, fall to the bullying tactics. It's like the whole, if you pay people out their ransom demands, you're just encouraging them to do more. So please don't do that. If they're going to leave you a bad review, that's okay. They're going to leave you a bad review. Cope with it. And often the demand is for more work. They often come back and say, oh, I need this and this and this extra, and they don't want to pay for it. And sometimes they will even dispute the work that's being done from what they're willing to pay perspective. I've seen some absolute horror stories where people have said, the clients come back happy, everything's good, and then they don't want to pay. And then, or they want a breakdown of the cost of goods sold that went into something. It's ridiculous. So what this leads us to is the way that we feel. And it can be exhausting. They can just drain our energy. It can cause us to, respond. And when we respond and react, we can become angry. We can become depressed about the way that we feel about a certain situation. Staff morale can plummet. So if you have other staff members and they're just being constantly by a bad client, and you're not dealing with it as their manager or their boss or the business owner, they are potentially going to walk from the job. So what would you rather have? A great staff member making most of your customers happy, or one customer that's getting everything they want? I think we'd go for the staff being happy. We can lose our excitement and love for what we do. And particularly when we're business owners, that's super important because we often are doing so much, right? We are doing so many things, spending so much time in our businesses. We need to love it. If we don't love it, we just can't cope. And it can be frustrating to ourselves because if we're not dealing with it and we can see it coming, particularly where the red flags were there at the start and you ignored them, it just gets us to the point where we just go, oh gosh, why did I take that client on in the first place? Isn't the client always right? We're always told that, the client's always right. Sure, sometimes they're right. And sure, sometimes they're problems because of 100% things we are doing wrong. What I'm talking about today in this situation is not those clients. When we've done things wrong, own up, fess up, all that stuff. What I'm talking about today is those ones where it's nothing you're doing. It's 100% them. They are absolute nightmares to work with, and they are for everybody, not just for you. And let's be real. So the client is not right all the time. And sometimes they will insist they are. They'll say, I am right. I am awesome. But it doesn't mean that we have to continue to deal with them, particularly if we are a business owner. I know for in the Business Connect program or something, it's a little bit harder to kind of sack a client. But in your private business, sure, you can sack clients all you want. It's your choice who you deal with. You don't have to deal with everybody. We don't need to be people pleasers all the time. And I think this is where a lot of people get this whole issue confused. But you do need to be polite. You need to be nice. You don't need to be nasty to someone just because you're getting rid of them. Doesn't mean you need to treat them awfully. That's not that way it works. But overall, I want you to consider this particular issue. Is delivering the most amazing service to the 1% or to that one person costing the 99%? And this is where, honestly, for me, I think this is what made me make some changes. I was trying to do everything for everybody and every last little thing. And so they'd come to me and I'd stay up late to do something. And then, of course, what happens? Then the next day, the clients I see the next day, maybe I'm not quite fully there. Maybe I'm not fully present. Maybe I'm half asleep. So I'm not necessarily delivering them a great experience. They did nothing wrong. They were not the ones that were causing trouble. The one that was causing trouble got this amazing service and they won't even appreciate it. So really think about that. What is it worth to you? So who is worth more to you? That one problem client, all your other clients put together, all the amazing clients, all your ideal clients, are you going to sacrifice yourself for everybody else? And what about your referrals? So one thing I have a policy of doing is if I won't deal with a customer myself, I will not refer them to somebody else. If it was a choice because I could see they were a problem client or they were a problem client, I would not refer them to someone else. I 100% refer people all the time if I'm, overloaded and I need to, get someone else to do something, or I feel that I'm not the best fit, 100% refer them. But don't refer somebody who is a problem, because all you're doing is passing on your problem and you're not going to make yourself very, in very good a position with that referral partner. So what are ways to avoid the problem clients? How do we stop this from happening? First thing is prevention is better than cure. So note the red flags. So if the person is constantly changing their mind or scope, if they just can't seem to actually be clear in their head what they want, maybe you don't want to deal with them. They appear really scattered. But sometimes just bear in mind there could be reasons for that. I had a lady I've dealt with. I just had a second meeting with her today, actually. And before the first session, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a disaster. This woman just can't even read one note to the next note. It was kind of like, for crying out loud, can you just focus for 5 seconds so that we can just tee up a meeting? But once I met with her in person, I got why she was the way she was that day and why she was behaving that way. And it made me, it was fine. We can get on with it and we can move on. And so, red flags, sometimes we just have to go, okay, I think there's a red flag there. So we can still take the relationship a little bit further, but sometimes note the red flag and go, hell no, stop. Do not deal with that person anymore. Because most of the time our gut instincts are right. Most of the time we know, right? They're a nightmare. If you hear people barking orders at other people, if you hear them absolutely ripping up into another service provider, maybe you don't want to deal with that client. If they are, first conversation with you, they're trying to knock your prices down. They're trying to get you to do more for less. Again, maybe not the right fit. Maybe send them somewhere else. And the other one is where they have a values difference. I think this is becoming more and more prevalent in the world that we're in, that in the past, values kind of weren't really talked about a lot, but now they are. So if you have a big disconnect in the way that you do things, like if you have a big disconnect in integrity. So for instance, I went to a networking group who said, if you give me a 5-star review for our business, I'll give you one for yours. And I'm like, hell to the no, because that is not me. It's not the way I operate. So yeah, just something to consider. If it's something that really makes a cross of your integrity, don't go there. Controlling what you can control. This is really important. We can't control everything, but there's a lot of things we can control. So review your onboarding process. Make sure you've got ways of checking and adding in those questions to identify potential problems coming up. Make sure you communicate clearly. And I highly suggest that everything that you've communicated verbally, you put in writing, because it's much easier to confirm something in writing than to go, oh, I thought you said this, when they only half listened to what you were saying. Explain any possible issues. So if you know that other customers have not noticed something or picked something up, particularly point it out when you're going through the contract. So actually point it out and say, see this here? This means this, just so there's no issues. Get contracts signed, but also if you do have particular clauses that have particular things that are important, get them signed off as well. And be clear, if you're accepting a change, like for instance, you've lowered your price, make sure you're crystal clear to them that you've done it and why you've done it, so that they don't necessarily expect that again next time. Okay, so very important. And if in doubt, if a client's being a jerk, get out. Don't deal with that client. Thanks for checking in, Anita and Janet and Nell and stuff. Hopefully you are enjoying the session. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. You might need to put them in the chat for later, but that's great that you guys are on board and having a look. PITA clients, I covered this last session, but what a PITA is a pain in the ass. And they are people that are not aligned with our values. Our purpose and theirs collide, not in that nice way, but the way. They are unhappy with our solution. They're never going to be happy. They are a nightmare to work with. They will leave bad reviews. They won't refer us. They ask for lots and they don't pay. So we do not want these people in our businesses. So some other ways to deal with this, which I mentioned last week, were a don't work to us section on our website. Add that in. Put that into your website, but so that it makes it crystal clear who you want to attract. Or put pictures in that make it clear of the type of people you're attracting and therefore which might instantly repel people. So for instance, if you're a marriage celebrant and you want to do gay weddings and things and you're fine with that, then put up a picture of a gay wedding. Because if somebody's anti that, they'll see that picture and it will repel them. And that's fine because that's what you want. You want to repel those that are not your clients and attract those that are your clients. So make sure that you're you in your marketing material. Don't put up a fake stage. It doesn't work because people are going to eventually see the real you when they deal with you. And I'd always recommend putting some form of pricing on your website. It doesn't have to be the whole price list, but some sort of indication just so that people know what is going on and that they are in your range. So what happens if you did take on the bad client? You didn't follow those kind of preemptive ways of handling it. I will remind you, always remain calm and polite. So sometimes when you get that email or whatever, just don't respond immediately. Maybe start typing up a response and then walk away. Come back to it when you're calmer and stay calm and stay polite. Don't get really emotive. Don't get fired up. Don't put your head in the sand. You've got to keep the communication channels going. And honestly, often a lot of people, once you're communicating, things fix. It wasn't that things were bad. It was just that there was an issue there, right? That you were on a different wavelength. Get back on the same wavelength and everything might end up fine. If worse comes to worse, you can start referring to your agreement and your contract terms and start pulling them out. Let's face it, I used to deal with service agreements with US fund managers and things like that. We never referred to those agreements. You never needed to because we were always on a happy, healthy, plane. But if you're not, then that's when you can go to the agreement. If you are in a business where you have multiple staff members, maybe you could reallocate that client to somebody else because maybe someone else is more tolerant of that type of person. Maybe somebody has handled someone with mental health issues before and therefore they can cope with that person better. But don't reallocate a problem to someone else if you think that it's just going to be a problem for them too. Only allocate it if you think you can handle it. They can handle it. Retain really good records in case your case ends up going to court. So if they have threatened you and said, I'm going to write a bad review, then you 100% keep records of that. And don't be bullied. Like, don't be threatened by someone saying, well, I'm going to leave you a bad review, and then feel that you have to, bend over backwards for them. Don't do it. So if all else fails and you can't do anything with that client, just fire them. Get rid of them. Follow your contract or whatever. Make sure your contract has a clause in it that you can fire clients. Okay, so if you don't have that at the moment, look at your contracts and update them. Also remember, a bad review is not the end of the world. People actually look at bad reviews and they're actually a great marketing opportunity. So if someone has all 5-star reviews and then there's a 1 or 2-star review in there, what we tend to look at the response to that 1 or 2-star review. What we tend to do is acknowledge people once in the review process. So acknowledge they have an issue. You're not accepting that you agree with it, but you're acknowledging that they feel the way they do. And then offer a solution or say what corrective action you've taken to prevent that occurring again, or offer them to contact you out of the chat, okay? And be polite and don't get defensive. Occasionally, it might be worthwhile putting a little bit of fact in there just to make other people, conscious of that there was more to it, but be very careful of getting defensive and becoming he said, she said, because that never goes well. The handling review session will be put up on the online school eventually, as that is starting to be filled out in the background. So we're going to cover in that session how to get reviews and reviews that actually add value, because there's some little tips and tricks you need to know about reviews, and the legalities. What can you legally ask for? What that networking group was doing was unethical and illegal. We don't want to be doing that. About responding to reviews, how to respond to them, how to respond to good, bad, and ugly reviews and fake reviews, because we all get those as well. And also just some alternative ways of dealing with your negative reviews, some that are quite amusing. So what do we do out of today's session? I would recommend reviewing your onboarding process, reviewing your service handling, the way that you handle your customer service and deal with any issues. And you can attend the training on handling reviews. If you need any further help, please feel free to reach out. So for those that don't know me, I am Jane Tweedy. I am the founder of FAQ Business Training, and I am a business advisor with the New South Wales Government Business Connect program as well. So if there's anything that you need help with, please feel free to reach out. If you're not in New South Wales, obviously paid services can apply, and I offer lots of training sessions. If you have a particular topic you want me to address in my little Tea Time Tips series, please let me know, and I will make sure I include them in a future one. So that's it for today. Nice to catch you. And like I said, if you've got any questions or comments, chuck them in the chat and we'll look at them later. Okay, catch you later. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.